Thing up. I got these. All right. So let me explain to everyone what I'm trying to do here. I want to make tutorials for this upcoming Big 20 race. If you guys haven't heard about this, for anyone who's watching who hasn't heard about the Big 20 race, it's going to be happening May 2nd at 1 p.m. And it's being put on by the Best of Nest crew. This is the Big 20 race. There was a 20 game race that we did just February 28th, I think was the most recent
right.
one. Yeah, something like that. And this, I guess, is going to be a tradition that's going to happen every couple months from now until we run out of games, possibly. No, there's going to be a series of them. It's not determined exactly how many yet, or what the overall schedule is, but we know the next one coming up is on May 2nd, and you can go to that URL right there, thebestofnest.com/big20, to see the games list. Renegade is one of the 20 games, and happens to be one that I know something about because this is one that I'd run before. So I figured this is a good thing to start out this tutorial series with. But beyond that, I know a little bit about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Most of the other games I'm not super familiar with, so I'm going to need people's help to make all of these happen. I've had a number of volunteers so far. Dragon Dark is going to be joining us on Friday of this week. Friday evening, Dragon Dark and I are going to do Karnov. I'm going to do the tutorial for that. We've got going to be having tutorials for Mickey Mousecapade. We're working on getting the date set for that. A couple others are in the works right now. I'll be doing one on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at some point. So probably I don't have a schedule up yet because we don't really have many of the dates nailed down. Just so far, this one and the Karnov on Friday are the two that we've decided on for sure. But I'd like to try to get all of them done within the next 2 weeks or so. You know, most of them done within the next 2 weeks, because the earlier we can get these done, the more helpful they'll be to people.
So that's what, more than one a day for 2 weeks?
Well, yeah. I mean, some of the games are really short, and some of them we might not even be able to do a tutorial on, depending on if we can, actually get people. But I want to try to get ones for all 20, so it may spill over into the following week. But we'll do them as many as we can and just see how far we get. But anyway, please do get in touch with me. My Twitter, I think it's going by in the crawl at some point, is feasel0. That's an easy way to get in touch with me because I usually check that regularly. You can also PM me or whatever. Many people probably have me on their Skype contacts. You can use that. But yeah, definitely get in touch with me if you are interested in helping with these tutorials, or even if you don't think that you can make it for the session itself. I want to try to put up a write-up for each of these games, of just written list of tips and advice, maybe make a big Google Doc out of all of it. And the idea is to hopefully link all of the resources that people have put together for these games, both the tutorials that I'm making, and a number of people have also made tutorials and route suggestions and such for the other games. I want to try to link all these things together in one spot, put them all together, and link it from the Big 20 race website, so people can get all the resources for these games all in one spot. So I'll post some announcements about that when that's ready. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to give the people all the information they need to get started, so there'll be no excuse to not join this race if you love NES games. Alright. Also, the other thing I'm looking for is people like these two brave souls right here who want to come on and learn the game as we talk about it and try some of these things out, because I think these tutorials will be much more helpful if we get the perspective of people who are new to the game and get their take on it and see if there's things that I'm missing, some gaps in my explanations. All right, well, let's get started. So Renegade, we're going to be playing this on difficulty level 1. If you're sitting here at the title screen and I hit the A button, you'll see it cycles through. It says player 1, level 2, level 3, and then back to level 1 again as I hit the A button. Make sure you do this on level 1, and don't do something stupid like what I did as I was preparing for this. Like I set a save state right here, which on the power pack means hitting like select A, and that actually started me in level 2 mode, which I didn't realize until I was pretty far into it. So just make sure that you're playing this on the right level, because you're going to start out if you choose the wrong level, you'll notice the enemies will have more hit points than they're supposed to, and that's a problem. And then once you get to level 4 will be completely different and you'll be lost. That's really the only difference between these 3 difficulty levels, is how many hit points the enemies get, and then level 4 is a completely different maze based on which of the difficulty levels. So we're on level 1, easy mode. Shouldn't be too bad for most people who are just starting out. Let's see, back to game. Okay, so some basics about the controls. This game controls a lot like Double Dragon 2. If you are close to an enemy, the only problem with this game, the only difference between this game and Double Dragon 2 is that the direction that you're facing is not controlled by where you're pressing on the D-pad. In Double Dragon 2, whatever way you walk, you turn to face that direction. In this game, it auto-faces whatever enemy you're nearest to. And you can see that it's sort of arbitrary when it decides it's going to switch you over. I think I'm not sure exactly what algorithm it uses to determine who's closer. I mean, obviously, if they're both on the same row, it's easy to tell the difference. But if they're on different rows from each other, it can be a little wonky which one the computer decides it wants to have you face. So that's one of the things you'll have to get used to, is that you don't have control over where your character is facing. So a lot of these strats have to do with getting close to an enemy so that you're facing the right way, or getting far enough away from them that you can face towards another enemy. Alright, so what happens is when you press the A and B buttons, the attack is going to be different based on whether you're facing left or facing right. So when you're facing left, the B button is going to do a punch, and the A button is going to do a kick, just like the way Double Dragon 2 works. And if you're facing to the right, the A button is going to do a punch, and the B button is going to do a kick. So really the A and B buttons just choose which direction you're going to attack, and it's a punch or a kick based on where you're facing. To jump kick, you press both A and B at the same time. And jump kicking is usually the best attack. I mean, you can punch enemies, but the problem is, if you just walk up to an enemy and start punching them, they're going to punch you back at pretty much the same rate you're punching them. Well, these guys are kind of wussy, but as you get to later levels, they'll be a little bit more aggressive. But it's not a winning proposition to walk up to the enemy and just start hitting the A or B button. A more effective move is the kick. The problem is you can't walk up to an enemy and kick them, because kick always goes in the opposite direction of where you're facing. So that's not very helpful. So you're unfortunately not going to be able to use the kick attack, which is actually pretty decent most of the time. So really, a jump kick is really the only weapon in your arsenal for fights like this. So pretty much everything you're going to do is walk up to an enemy, start with the jump kick, that'll stun them, then you grab the enemy. I should have gotten this into a place where there was just one enemy to deal with. It's going to be a little harder with 3 of them running around. But you walk up, jump kick to stun the enemy, and then you just walk right up to grab them. When the enemy's stunned, all you do is walk onto him, and that's how you do a grab. When you've grabbed the enemy, you can press the button that's towards them to do a kick, or you can press the button that's away from them to throw. And so essentially what you do is, depending on the amount of hit points the enemy has, you'll jump kick, walk up to him, you'll do one... Here, maybe it's easier if I show this on the video, because then I can do it in slow-mo.
I've got one guy here, all alone.
There you go, that's a bit easier to work with. So yeah, once you do that, you can grab onto him and then throwing him, and the throw does a fair amount of damage. But let me show you what this looks like in context here. Let's actually go back to where I'm... Okay, so... Oh, this is an exception because he's right there at the edge. So I jump kick that guy to knock him off because he's already right there at the edge. But all right, so for this guy, he ducks. It's random whether the enemy's going to dodge you or not. So sometimes the enemies will duck when you're jump kicking, and you'll just have to jump kick again until you get him. So one jump kick, walk up and grab the enemy. And in level 1, because there's a ledge, all you need to do is get the guy close to the edge and throw him off. So I should probably switch to a level where you actually... Nah, I'll just show you. It'll be easier. It'll be easier if I just show you. All right, so the
It's
basic
worth
strat.
noting that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh
Sorry.
no, okay. Well, I was going to say the basic strat is just jump kick, kick the guy once after you've grabbed him, and then throw him. So one jump kick, one knee as you're grabbing him, and then one throw, and that's all it takes to kill these enemies in level 1. So it's just jump kick, grab, knee, throw, jump kick. Oops. See, all right. Now another thing is the jump kicks do about as much damage as the knee does. So sometimes you'll try to jump kick an enemy and you'll hit him with the jump kick, but then he'll hit you back at the exact same time, and that actually will prevent you from grabbing him because you're also getting stunned at the same time, and then you miss your opportunity to grab the guy while he's stunned. But the nice thing is, then the second time you jump kick him, you don't even have to do that knee because you've already dealt that damage. You can just go right into a throw from there. But anyway, so these guys in level 1 is just a jump kick, grab, knee, throw. Jump kick, grab, knee, throw, etc. You don't even have to use the ledge. You can fight these guys pretty efficiently out here. Jump kick, grab, knee, throw. The enemies in level 1 will have that amount of health, so you can do that. The enemies in level 2 also have that amount of health. But once you get to levels 3 and 4, they're going to get more health than that. So you have to do sort of a modified version of that. And it's jump kick, 3 knees, and then throw. So you jump kick, grab them, knee 3 times, and then throw. And that's enough damage to kill the late game enemies. So basically for all these, it's either 1 or 3 knees, and then you throw. Now, another pretty important thing, sometimes you'll screw up and, like, let's say you throw the enemy before he's been kneed enough times to die, and the enemy falls on the ground. Here, let me just get, so there's one enemy left on the screen here, make it a little easier.
Someone's going real fast in the background.
Yeah. Bikes indoors. We'll get to bikes indoors. You're getting ahead of us. Alright, so now let me set a save so I can show you this stuff. Alright, so once the enemy's on the ground, you can walk up and press down to pin the enemy. Once the enemy is pinned, you can sit there forever. The enemy's not going to eventually get up. And then you can press either the A or the B button to punch him in the face until that enemy's dead. And that's pretty much going to be your go-to move when you screw anything up. If you knock an enemy down in a way that doesn't kill them, you're going to use that. The other thing that's nice about the pin move is that when you've knocked the enemy over, you can actually use that enemy as a way of controlling which way your character is facing. Let me see if I can show that off. We knock the enemy down. Let me see if I can get him into this position. Yeah, this is really hard to do with the 3 enemies here. Alright, so every time you sit on one of these enemies, it resets his timer for how long he's going to stay pinned or stay down on the ground. So you can sit on the enemy and then get off him over and over again, and he'll continue to stay pinned. And what you can do is, when the enemy, you can move over to the left a little bit, or move over towards or wherever the other enemy near you is, and you can use that as a way to keep yourself facing towards the downed enemy and doing a kick against the enemy that's still up. So let's see if I can show that in a context where it's actually helpful. This is sort of advanced technique, the fighting enemies once they're pinned. I mean, if you do everything perfectly and don't have to worry about enemies that you've knocked down without killing them, then you won't ever have to worry about this. But if you ever do get an enemy knocked down, you can use it to actually kick the other enemies, because you stay close to the body that's on the ground, and you can keep doing this to keep the enemy pinned with spawning hearts, and then you can use it to kicks in on all these enemies, whereas normally if you walk up to an enemy and try to attack them, it'll face the enemy and you'll use punches instead of kicks. But by using the enemy that's down on the ground there to make the computer, choose to make you face away from the enemy that you actually want to attack, you can force the game to use kicks against enemies. So sometimes you may want to do that. It's more helpful in the later levels when the enemies have more hit points. They're a little too easy on the first 2 levels to even bother with this technique. I'll probably show it in action in level 3 where it starts to become difficult. So let's focus on what you're supposed to be doing in level 1 speedrun wise. So I'd say first thing is get over here to the right side, and all it is just jump kick the enemy once and then throw him in the pit. If the enemy gets on the right side of you, you can just do a pair of jump kicks like what I did there. I mean, it's all pretty straightforward. Most of the time in this game, you want to keep the enemies on one side of you. Having enemies on both sides of you is a really bad thing. I mean, that's just general beat 'em up 101. So usually the very first thing that I would do, well, always the very first thing I would do in level 1 is go over here. And once you've done that, you can just throw them right off. So, to speed this process up, you'll notice that the enemies, when they're far away from you, they'll run, and when they get close to you, they slow down. So, while you're waiting over here to throw these enemies off the edge... Oh, I have a bad save state here. When you're waiting over here to throw these enemies off the edge, sometimes if you can actually trick them into running. If there's enemies that are kind of like milling about over here waiting for you to dispatch some other enemy, you can trick them into running by moving a little bit further away. And so let me see if I can show this in action, because it's pretty important, because it saves a lot of time when added up. So you'll notice that these enemies are, some of them are hitting me as I jump kick them, and it's kind of random whether they're going to hit you or not. Oh, that guy just ran right into me. Because you are vulnerable as you're doing a jump kick, and so if the enemy chooses to punch you while you're jump kicking, both you and the enemy will hit each other at the same time, and that's no good. But when the enemy is running, he can't do that. So the idea is to take an enemy that's running and kick him kick him before he stops running. Get him while he's running, and then he has no chance of hitting you while you jump kick him. So that's why I'll sometimes back away from the enemies to force them to run and then jump kick them as they get close, because it's a way of getting a free hit. So sometimes the enemies will already be over here and they'll be milling about, like about right here where I'm standing. And instead of just walking up to them and jump kicking, I'll instead walk away from them, walk closer to this edge to try to force them to run, just so they'll be in the running animation, and I'll have a bit of a safer time jump kicking them. So, let's look at this in practice. See if I can get a couple of them to do it.
They can still duck, though, right, when they're running?
I think if you do it right and you hit them before they've broken out of the running animation, they can't even duck. They can't dodge, they can't hit you.
Oh, okay. So I just need to get into the air earlier, I guess.
Yeah, it's a matter of doing your jump kick at the right time, that you hit them before they stop running. Alright, I just want to see if I can get, like, right there. I triggered that guy to run by backing away from him. Right there, triggered that guy as well. Yeah.
So how about this? This is where I'm going to ask you
Sure.
about something. So I've got myself into kind of a bad situation over here. These guys are really close, so I can no longer manipulate them to run.
Right.
And they're kind of stacked up. So what is my best option here?
Okay. Best option here. The problem is that the enemies, once they're too close to you, you can't trigger them into running, so you basically have to just like stand there and jump kick them. And when you're standing that close to the edge, the enemies can very easily knock you off of it if you try to face them. So if you're in that situation, I mean, normally if this was a world record attempt, I would just go for it and take the risk that they might knock you off. But it is very risky to be that close to the edge. So what I would probably do at that point is just go left and get on the left side of all three of those enemies and just fight them without throwing them off the edge. So just do a jump kick, grab, and then one knee and then throw will be enough to kill any of these enemies. And basically that's about as fast as throwing them off the edge. You don't even really need to throw these guys off the edge in order to do this level fast. You can just fight them the normal way. But it's just slightly faster to do it, so that's what I always recommend to people, and it's pretty easy once you get the rhythm of it. But yeah, if you ever get trapped where you're standing over here and the enemies are right here next to you, don't try to just, jump kick them this close to the edge in a race, because you're very likely to get knocked off, and, that's going to be bad. So I would say if you're in that situation, just get out of it. Go around them, go to the other side, fight them from the other side for a while, and then maybe after a while you can move back to the right and do it again. But definitely don't take any risks in this race. Don't put yourself so close to the edge with enemies, swarming you in a position where they're likely to knock you off. Okay.
What is a game over like in this game? Is it back to the start?
Back to the start.
Okay,
you get,
so
you get
3 lives.
Yeah, 3 lives, and that's it. Back to the start. So definitely.
So there you go.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to game over. When you die, you'll start at whatever screen you were on, but you'll have to repeat the fight from the beginning. So let me one more thing on this level, or on this screen before we move on. I know we're spending a lot of time on the screen. It's just because there's a lot of the basic principles can be illustrated here that we won't need to explain later if I explain them now. But one of the ways that I often start is by running and then punching that first guy, and then jump kicking the second guy off the edge, and that gets you in the position where now I can just do the regular strategy. Right, so that's how I often recommend starting out. You just start out double tapping to run, and then immediately punch the very first guy, kill him on the ground while he's pinned, and then jump kick the next guy off the edge, and then just turn left and start fighting the guys like you normally would.
I just did something interesting. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording, so I'm gonna load it up and start recording again. But it looked like I did a running jump kick from standing still.
Okay, that is a glitch. There's 2 major glitches in this that are not helpful. One of them is what I call the stored up jump kick. So basically, the game, you're running, and when you're running and you press A and B, you'll do like a running jump kick. And sometimes if you're running and you either get hit by an enemy or if you punch an enemy, sometimes the game doesn't realize that you've stopped running. And then even if you're standing still, the next time you press both A and B at the same time, the game will do like a forward jump kick like that from a complete standstill. And that's because the game never reset that running flag. The way to reset the running flag is to just do a punch or a kick while you're standing still. Either of those. Any punch or kick while standing still will reset the running flag. And the reason this can be a problem, let me see if I can actually get this to happen, because you can die in level 1.
I totally just jumped right into the pit.
You jump right into the pit, yeah. So let me see if I can reproduce that, because it's a real hazard. So I knocked that guy out. Oh, I punched an extra time, so that canceled the running flag. Alright, yeah, it didn't do it. But basically, after you knock that first guy over, and once he's on the ground, you punch him a bunch. And after he dies, if you just do one punch or kick while standing before you start to fight the next guy, it'll avoid you accidentally jump kicking off the edge when you meant to do a stationary jump kick. This is something that you guys will definitely notice as you play the game. I mean, you'll start to become aware of it, and be careful about doing a standing jump kick while facing towards a ledge. If you're not sure about your run flag status. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, the subway car. Inside here, the enemies have the same amount of hit points as they do outside there. So here, there's no cliff to throw off of, so it's just, jump kick, then a knee, and then a throw. But, yeah, jump kick, knee, throw. But the enemies will spawn from both sides of the screen here. So really the trick to doing this fast is making sure the enemies always stay on the same side of you, so you're not bothered by one guy while you're fighting one of the other guys. So generally I would say once you walk in here, you can, go after this first guy. Oh, I kicked him too many times. And throw him so that he hits the next guy who comes after you. So usually this first guy down here in the lower left, I go after first, once in the throw, and it usually hits the other guy as you're throwing him. If you hit an enemy with a thrown enemy, it doesn't do any damage. It doesn't do any damage to mow down an enemy by running through them. Let me see if I can do it. Yeah, that doesn't do any damage to mow an enemy down by running into them. And it doesn't do any damage to throw an enemy at another enemy and knock them down that way. But once an enemy is on the ground, by whatever means, a thrown enemy or just bonking heads with them, the pin is a great attack to use. And even if you're being surrounded by enemies and swarmed by them such that you can't sit there and pin them, what you can do is this trick that I was talking about earlier, where you sit on the enemy for a minute, then hit one of the nearby ones with a jump kick, then punch the enemy on the ground some more, and then get up and hit another nearby enemy with a, well, whatever. I guess you could use a regular kick. You don't need to use a jump kick. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. So take out the second guy with punches, and now just try to keep all the enemies on one side of you. The nice thing is you can walk right through enemies if you want to get to the other side of them quickly. But yeah, I would say your first priority, if there's enemies on both sides of you, is pick the side that has fewer enemies. So it'll usually be two enemies on one side of you, one enemy on the other. Pick the side that's got just one enemy and just walk past that enemy so all three enemies are on the same side. That's how you should do all the fighting in this game. So alright, inside the subway car, it's a pretty easy fight, just don't get surrounded. If you knock an enemy down without killing him, or if you throw an enemy and it knocks another enemy down without killing him, use the pin move. It shouldn't be too hard to get through this.
About the pin move.
What's that? Go for it.
In scenarios where you're not fighting a boss, when you're fighting regular enemies like this, what determines, is it RNG factored where if you're trying to pin a regular enemy, but they actually get up?
Okay, that's another glitch. So there are two bugs in the mechanics. One is that stored jump kick, and the other, or the stored running kick, and the other is the enemy getting up when they're pinned. That happened because it's sort of like a fake pin. If the enemy is not fully on the ground yet when you pin them, like if the enemy is falling onto the ground and you start to sit on the enemy a little too soon, then the game doesn't register that you have the enemy pinned. It doesn't register you're sitting on the enemy, and you'll get back up after 2 seconds or whatever the usual amount of time is. And when that happens, your punches that you're doing to that enemy, it'll appear that you're punching him in the face, and those punches are doing 0 damage. So let me see if I can actually reproduce that. But if you get on the enemy, actually, it'll be an easier thing for me to show you at the boss. So why don't I wait till we're at the boss and I can show you that. But that's basically a bug, and it means you just needed to wait a little bit longer before pinning the enemy. Like the enemy falls on the ground, and give it, a third of a second or something before you sit on that enemy, because if you do it too quickly, then the game doesn't realize that you're actually pinning that enemy. Okay, so go ahead.
I'm at a weird situation here where it might just be a product of save states, but I've got 2 guys on the left, 1 on the right, so it makes sense to go for the guy on the right. And I go over there, and if I land a jump kick, as soon as I grab him, the guy behind me will run at me.
Right, so you're on the wrong side of that enemy. Instead of just walking up and hitting him from the left, walk past him. Walk right through the enemy and face leftwards to fight him.
There you go.
Yeah, because the enemies, it's weird, the enemies won't, like if you're fighting one guy, the enemies who are standing behind that guy will not walk up to you. They'll actually walk all the way up or all the way down and go around and then come at you from behind, but they never just walk straight through the enemy you're fighting, to get at you. So having an enemy in front of you that you're fighting, and the rest of the enemies behind that enemy, is actually a really safe position. It's almost like you're using that enemy you're fighting as a shield. And so it takes a very long time for the enemies standing behind him to walk their circuitous route all the way around to get to behind you. So that usually gives you enough time to take out the enemy. So that's why you want to make sure you always keep them all on the same side of you, and you're not surrounded when you're fighting. Perfect. Okay, this boss here, there's two ways to fight him. One way I would not recommend for this race, because even though it's a lot faster, it is super dangerous. But I'll show you both ways. So first the safer way. So you walk in, and it's basically running punches. This is what you're going to do to all the bosses. You double tap on the D-pad to run, like lots of games, and then you press either the A or the B button to punch. And the running punch is really the most important move, I would say, because you can use it on anything. You can use it on the regular enemies. If you wanted to do all the fights in the game with running punches, even the normal enemies, you could, and it wouldn't be too bad. But you really need it for the bosses. And so you just kind of go back and forth, and once you get used to the timing of this, there should be 100% success rate at this boss fight. Once you've mastered the timing of the running punch, there's no chance that the enemy is going to get back at you in any way. It's completely helpless. So let me explain the way the health works. When you walk in here, look at the enemy's health bar up there. It says EMY, and there are, I want to say 8 bars there. If I were to try to pin this guy, let's say I knock him down and he's got 7 bars left, like this. I knock him down, he's got 7 bars left, and if I try to sit on him right now to pin him, he's going to throw me off. And that's going to be true of any boss that has more than 2 bars of health. 2 bars is the threshold for when you're allowed to pin the enemy, pin the boss. Or any enemy, actually, but it's just that the regular enemies don't get enough hit points to be able to throw you. So it's really only the bosses you have to worry about this on. So yeah, I'm going to try to pin him, and it just throws me off. So really, what you have to do is do the running punch up until you see that the enemy has 2 health left. Alright, so now the enemy's got 2 health left, and now I can walk up. Oops, I didn't do it fast enough. Let's try this again.
Neither did I.
Yeah. It's pretty quick. You got to be ready for him. There. And so once the enemy's down to 2 health, you can sit on him and just, finish him the usual way. And that is the fastest way to kill him. Running punches, and then once he's down to 2 health, pin him and knock him out.
I'm pretty sure he just threw me off at 2 health.
He threw you off at 2 health. Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's a weird one.
Well, yeah, no. There's actually the health bar is not really an integer thing.
Oh,
there's actually like, I don't know. I want to say subpixel, but there's sub bar values of health. So if you see that he has 2 health and he still throws you off, it means you had like 2.4 health or something like that. And it's just masking as 2 health. The thing is, as long as you're only doing running punches and jump kicks, you're never going to get any of those fractions of a health, so you can trust the health bar. But if you screwed something up and you did like a couple of regular punches, or maybe like a regular kick or something like that, that could do a fraction of a bar of damage, and you would end up with the health bar not really representing what his actual health is. But as long as you're only doing running punches and jump kicks, you're never going to have that problem. And when he has 2 bars, he has 2 bars.
Do you have a good visual cue for when to punch, or is it just like sort of a muscle memory rhythm thing?
It's I don't have a visual cue at all. It's just muscle memory on the timing.
Because if you're too early, that's super bad, because you just run right past him and he gets up and then he's loose. But is it possible to be too late and then he does something?
Yes. If you're too late, you'll actually run over the enemy without punching. Like, you'll run into the enemy and then you'll do your punch. And you colliding with an enemy, like a running collision with an enemy, does 0 damage. Or it might do like a tiny, tiny amount of damage, but it's not an appreciable amount of damage. And so I would recommend not just counting the number of running punches, I would recommend actually watching the boss's health bar, because there will be times that if you punch too late, it'll count as you running into the enemy and not you punching the enemy. So Yeah, you don't. That's the consequence for being too late.
How about getting the very first punch?
Okay, the very first punch. The moment you walk into this room, this is pretty important. The moment you walk into this room, I recommend holding upright, because that, first of all, closes some of the distance. You'll notice the enemy starts above you, and you need to close some of that vertical distance. And you also want to get far enough away from the enemy that you are not going to get hit by him. He has like a stationary jump kick that he does that's pretty powerful, and it'll cut through whatever attack you're doing. So you need to close that distance and get far away from the enemy. If you just straight up hold right, the enemy's going to kind of... you're going to be a little bit too close to the edge, and there's a chance that the enemy could kind of walk up to you and knock you in. So I recommend holding up and right until you get on the same line as him.
Maybe it's my save state, but it's pretty tight to get in the running punch before his kick comes out for me.
It is. Let me try left, actually. Left might be a pretty safe way to do it. Yeah, it looks like if you just walk straight left, it's going to be a little slower, but if you walk straight left at the start, that's a nice, safe way of getting started on this fight. Yeah, I always hold upright. And sometimes he'll hit me as I'm doing the running punch, but the running punch still counts. Even if he punches you at the same time, your attack still counts.
Yeah, I feel if the boss is, when I'm loading the states, if the boss is directly in the middle of the platform, you'll have more than enough room on the right side to start a running punch.
Yeah, you can go either way, like left or right. I think going left initially is safer because you're not near the cliff. You're not near that edge. But I think the fastest is upright. Close that gap really quickly and get set up so that you can run leftwards to hit him, because he starts out a little bit to your left, so it already gives you a bit of an advantage there. But the safe way would be walk left and wait till he gets down to your row before you begin the running punches. Alright, so now let me explain. Alright, it's basically you do this until the enemy's down to 2 health, and then you sit on him and punch him to finish him. But let me explain the quick kill. So this boss, you'll notice most other things when you knock them down, they fall away from you. But watch what happens when I knock this down. He falls towards me. So the reason they've done this, the reason the programmers have the boss fall towards you instead of falling away from you like a normal enemy, is because they don't want you to kick this boss off the cliff. You know, you can get him up to the edge and, you know, do your jump kicks, and if he falls towards you, there's no chance that he's going to fall off that edge. But you can actually circumvent that by getting the enemy on the left side of you, really, really close, and you have to get really close to the edge. Here, I'm going to get knocked in. That's one of the dangers of this. But if you can get the enemy really close to the edge and then jump kick him, he'll fall in like that. Fall towards you and then fall through you and off that cliff. So you have to be standing like basically right here at the very edge and the enemy very close to you, and then you jump kick him and hope that he doesn't knock you in the pit instead.
Yeah, I just got it, actually.
Yep, and sometimes you'll be not quite close enough, and he'll fall a little bit short, but then you can get it the second time around, because every time you knock the guy on the ground, and then he gets up, and then you jump kick him again, he inches a little bit closer to you each time. So if that happens, if you're not close enough to the edge, and the boss is not close enough to fall, if he just like falls at the ground at your feet instead of falling off the edge, just do it again. Wait for him to get up, jump kick him 2 more times, and that'll bring him even closer, and that's probably going to be enough to knock him off. You might have to do it a couple times, but you'll eventually get it. The reason I don't recommend this, though, for the race is because being so close to the edge, like anything, like what happened right there, can happen to you. If he decides he wants to come in with a running punch and knock you off, then, you know, that's what's going to happen. Oh.
It seems like if you're so close to the edge, especially in the middle, you have a greater chance of falling off yourself.
You have a very great chance of falling off. That's why I don't think I'm going to recommend this to people for the race itself. But if you want to take a risk, this can probably save you maybe 6 seconds. So not a huge amount in the grand scheme of things, but given that the record for this game is just over 5 minutes, 5:15 maybe, it's every second counts, and if you really want to, try to do this game right, this is the strat that you would want to use. But for the race, I recommend just fighting with running punches. So maybe you can start out by holding left and doing this, doing that setup, or you can do the diagonal upright setup, which is a little bit, that runs the risk that he's gonna maybe grab you and knock you down once, which isn't going to be, death or anything, but it is going to lose you a couple seconds. Oh, I overshot. There we go. So that's level 1. It's a pretty straightforward level once you've gotten the hang of just the basics of fighting and keeping the enemies all on one side of you. I mean, I can't stress enough how important that is, just not get surrounded. But let's move on to level 2. Level 2 is very much like level 1. The enemies have the same amount of health. To kill one of these enemies, it's a jump kick, grab him, one knee, and then throw. So jump kick, grab, one knee, throw for all these enemies. Incidentally, if you try to jump kick an enemy and he hits you at the same time you're jump kicking him, then you don't even need to do the knee next time. So remember, keep track of which enemy is which and which ones you've damaged, because you can leave out that knee if you've already hit the enemy once. You can just jump kick him, grab him, and throw him straight away. So little small time savings if you can just keep track of which enemy is which and who you've done what damage to. So in this level, you can do the exact same thing you did in level 1. Knock the enemies off the edge here. And then you can juke them into running by, moving away from them a little bit to force them to run at you, making it a little safer. But I think it doesn't make a big difference one way or the other which way you fight these guys. You could fight them by knocking them in the water, or you could just fight them normally on land with the, one knee and then a throw. But because the enemies have so little health, it's not really, it doesn't take that long to fight them even without this throwing in the water strat. But this is what I recommend to people. Throw them in the water. If the one gets on the left side of you, you can just jump kick him in instead of throwing him. Alright, this P power-up is actually really helpful here. We'll talk about this P power-up a little bit later because it'll come up in some places where it's not useful. But if you see that P power-up, definitely grab it in this level, because when you jump kick the enemy and it just rockets them off the screen into the water, that is the fastest way to fight these guys. The downside is that if you see that P power-up appear, it means you are doing the level really slow, because the P power-up only appears when your timer gets to a certain number. There's, I think it takes 15 seconds on the in-game clock, or 20 seconds on the in-game clock, or something like that before it can possibly appear. And at that point, there's a random chance of whether it's going to appear or not. Or it may be based on whether you're hitting an enemy on the right number on the counter or something like that. But it's the kind of thing that, it's because it's based on a fixed timer, if you see that P appear, it means you've taken longer than you really needed to clear these enemies out. But if you do get it, definitely use it. So there's the P power up, and it means that any enemy I hit is going to go flying once I kick him. And so that's actually really helpful in this level. But in the later levels, any level beyond level 2, do not ever collect it. It's not going to be helpful for a speedrun or even a casual play. It's not a very good power-up. So you'll always want to avoid that P past this level, anywhere past this level. So I'm going to do the throwing them in the water strat, but you could also, at the beginning of this level, try to get them all on one side of you like this, and then just fight them the normal way. I kicked him twice. I didn't need to do that. And there's the P power-up. See, it's actually really helpful here. So anyway, once you get used to fighting these guys, this won't be any harder than the fight in level 1. These enemies are a little bit more aggressive. They're more likely to attack you as you're jump kicking them. But not a huge difference, really, between them and the level 1 guys. So let's finish these guys off, and I'll show you the next section here. Okay, motorcycles. Once this last enemy is knocked off the edge, you'll get a screen transition. It doesn't matter where you were standing before that screen transition happened. So don't worry about, trying to position yourself to prepare for this next scene, because you're always going to be teleported to this spot right here every time. And that's good, because this is actually a pretty good spot to fight the motorcyclists from. I would actually recommend moving down just a little bit from where you start. Here, well, I got to knock the first guy off his motorcycle before I show you. So knock the first guy off the motorcycle, and then I'd say move down just a little bit. Maybe like 1/3 of your character's height. Move down just a tiny bit, but don't go left to right. Keep this same horizontal position, because that's a really good spot. But maybe move down just a little bit, and that'll make your job easier. So here, for the first guy, you don't have time to do that. You just jump immediately to knock him off. But after that, I move down just a tiny bit and fight the rest of the guys from there. So let me show you what this is like. There's going to be 5 of these motorcycles. It changes based on what skill level you're at, but on skill level 1, 5 motorcycles. And they're going to go one of 2 directions. They're either going to go left when they come out of here, or they're going to go right. So the motorcycle is either going to come directly at you like this. Oh, I missed him. The timing of this is tricky, but again, with a little bit of muscle memory, you'll get used to it. So yeah, he's either going to go right at you, or he's going to go left, bounce off that water ledge there, and come back at you, or just come straight at you. But either way, you can just be standing in this exact same spot and mow them all down. So basically, from where you start, just move down a tiny bit and fight them from there. Man. Okay. Now, if you want to gain a little bit of time, if the motorcycle spawns leftwards, if he's going left when he appears, you can actually advance a little bit, like moving up to as close as you really want to risk it, I guess. So for the ones that go right, I stand right here. For the ones that go left, I actually advance maybe to see where this motorcycle's left tire is, this blue motorcycle in the background. Maybe advance up to that spot, side to side. Like you're normally standing right here, halfway between that white car and the front of the bike. That's where it spawns you. Oh, like I guess more towards right there. So around the front of the car. But you can actually walk all the way up to here if you want to hit the leftward spawning motorcycles just a tiny bit sooner. But I would recommend moving back to your home position after doing that, because you don't know where the next one's going to spawn. Because this is the right position for knocking off the motorcycles that spawn rightwards. But for the lefties, you can advance on them just a little bit. But you don't need to. The easiest thing, by far, is just to stay in exactly this spot and don't ever move from it, regardless of which way the motorcycle goes. But, you get a slight time savings if you advance on them.
I have discovered there is a 6-frame window to kick these guys.
6 frames. And the speed of the motorcycle guys depends on the difficulty level, so I imagine that once you get up to the hard difficulty level, it's probably half that. Fortunately, we're playing this on easy. Alright, so now, I said there's 5 of these guys. There's always going to be exactly 5 of them. Let me knock the 4th one off. Alright, after the 4th guy you knock off, well, let me show you first what happens for the 5th guy you knock off. The 5th guy you knock off the motorcycle, once he dies, then a motorcycle is going to appear underneath you. See right here, you see I've got this motorcycle. It appears wherever you... I think it's where you're standing. I think it's where you're standing, not where the guy was knocked off from, but they're generally, very close to each other. And then you get onto this motorcycle, and you see that it takes some time for him to ride off the right side of the screen in order to enter the next scene. Now, if you want to save that riding off the screen time, I would recommend knocking off 4 of these motorcyclists first, and then getting the 5th one to follow you all the way over to the right. Let's get one more. So now I run all the way to the right over here for the 5th motorcyclist, because as this motorcyclist is coming at you, first of all, you can use part of his, the previous guy's death animation time to, travel this distance to run over here. And so it's basically free movement. And this guy drives a lot faster on his bike than you do when you're riding your bike off the screen. So you actually get a slight time savings by killing the fourth guy over here, letting him come to you so that your motorcycle appears very close to the edge of the screen. So the strat is knock four guys off.
Crazy graphical glitch when I. So I wanted to see if it was possible to snipe the biker guys as they come on the screen, right?
Yeah, you can stand right here. You can do it.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's very hard.
So I did it, and someone's face flew off, and I'm a little scared. You can see it. I don't know. It won't go away. It follows me around.
That's cool. I've never seen that before, but yeah, there it is. Huh.
Just good. All right, it's gone. Okay, never happened.
Shoot, I lost count. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right.
Oh, I got it happen again. Okay. Anyway, is there any way to tell which way the bike is going to come, from the left or the right?
Nope, it's random.
Oh, good. So this is a very risky thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I usually stand where I do, basically right where it spawns you, but move down just a tiny bit. And that gives you time to react. But anyway, kill the fifth motorcyclist right here. You don't want to kill him too close to the edge, because then the bike will actually bounce off it and appear even farther away. The best spot is basically right where I killed him. Horizontally, it's I'll show you the visual cue I use. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you see there's this motorcycle right here, and then these girders. So I stand right between, halfway between the motorcycle and the girders. So about right here is where I would stand for the perfect spot for this final guy. Oops. And then he drives off the screen here, and now we're in the road rash section. Okay, this section is really different. This is the one place where the game likes to break up the gameplay and give you some variety. This is actually a really hard thing to control, I think. The hitboxes, your bike isn't hard to control, but controlling whether you hit the enemy or not, or where you're hitting the enemy, is really tricky, because when you crash into the enemy, it kind of bounces you around some, and sometimes you'll appear to just kick right through the enemy and do no damage. It's a very finicky section. And so the way I do this, the thing I found that's probably the easiest method, is to walk over here to the right and then let the enemy hit you first. Because the enemy, if you do nothing, if you don't even move anywhere on the D-pad, the enemy will actually come up and get right alongside you so that he can kick you. And once the enemy has positioned himself perfectly like that, then you just use that opportunity to hit him. So generally what I do is I walk up here to the right, or I drive up here to the right side of the screen, and then I let go of the D-pad, and as soon as you see that little bonk happen of the enemy first running into you, then you just press the A button. As soon as you see that little and then the enemy is magically right there alongside you. This one is stuck in a weird loop. Then you just hit the A button and he gets knocked right off. So rather than trying to position yourself in the way to hit him, you just move to the right and let the enemy hit you and position himself automatically to get knocked off the motorcycle. And you'll sometimes get knocked back a little bit. You'll sort of lose your position, and you might have to hold right in order to move up a little bit on the move a little bit further to the right. You may need to do that in between enemies. A little bit of a correction to get your position back on. But the important part is that while you're kicking the enemy, don't hit anything on the D-pad. Get yourself into position and then let go of the D-pad, because otherwise, if you're pressing something on the D-pad, you'll start to move around a little bit, and this whole thing about using the enemy to position himself automatically just doesn't work. So you just walk up and then just let go and let the enemy bonk into you. Every now and then you'll get weird behavior like this. That enemy went right past me and he's now hitting my back tire. It was probably because I didn't let go of the D-pad in time. Because really, if you walk up and let go of the D-pad, there's no way that should happen. So if something like that happens, I recommend just sort of like backing off and then coming at the enemy again.
I think it should also be noted that for the motorcycle section, you'll want to stay in about the middle of the screen just due to enemy behavior.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, you don't want to get pinned. So there are some hazards on the screen. If you touch the bottom, you're dead. The bottom of the screen kills you. But the top doesn't kill you. You'll just bounce off of it. If you run onto this thing at the top of the screen, it doesn't do any damage. You just kind of bounce off of it. So if you're going to be stuck anywhere, get stuck at the top, not at the bottom. It sometimes can get kind of dangerous if you're struggling with one of these enemies, and you're getting kind of close to the bottom of the screen, and then boom, suddenly you wipe out because you hit that thing at the bottom. You've got to watch out for that. Stay, I'd say, at the dead center or above, but nowhere below the white line. I would say don't go below that white line, because then you're just asking for trouble. The enemies are random, whether they're going to appear above you or below you. Fortunately, the strategy that you use doesn't really matter too much where the enemy appears. And then the last thing to remember is to be at the right side of the screen when it's finally time to exit, because that'll save you time. Wherever you are on the screen, when you kill the last enemy, it'll go into sort of like an auto-driving mode where it'll drive you off the screen, and that can take, extra seconds. If you're way back here on the left and beat the last enemy, it's going to be pretty slow. So that's why we generally want to stay to the right. Another thing that you might see is a turbo power-up. There's a power-up that's, I can't even remember, it's at a T or an S or something like that? It's an S. There it is. So that's the S, which gives me turbo. So you see in the top right it says turbo, and you press the B button, and that actually lets you zip right by the enemies. Oh, I didn't skip them all. So you can skip enemies. If you happen to get an S, it means you spent too long on that screen, because the S only spawns after a certain amount of time, and you should be able to finish these enemies off before the S spawns. But if you do see an S, then use that to your advantage. Press the B button and just zip right past whatever enemies you're fighting.
From what I remember in the past, if the S comes along, does it... Because I know you just said it skips some of the bikers that you haven't defeated yet, since I think you need to defeat a total number of 7 of them to pass.
I think it's 7. Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, even if you use the speed power up, you still have to defeat the enemies afterwards.
I'm pretty sure you don't, as long as you've despawned them. I'm pretty sure it counts as you having defeated them. I think.
I can check.
That's probably a good thing to check. I don't ever use the turbo, so I don't know. I have 6. Wait, was that 6 enemies? It looked like 6 enemies. Let me just make sure I got the count right. 1.
Yeah, I thought it was 7.
2, 3, 4. That one was a little bizarre. 5. 6. Oh, it is 7. Yep.
Okay.
7 enemies.
What do you think about the strategy of sort of purposely bonking into them so that they kind of warp right next to you?
Yep, you can do that. I usually let the enemy run into me, but you can also run into the enemy and do that. Yep, so you walk up to him, bonk into him from the side. Wait, bonk into him from the back? How do you... I can't always get it to work.
You just move up or down until you collide with him, basically. You don't want to do a left or right movement once you're on the far side of the screen.
I'm usually on the far right of the screen, already tapping up, just as because most likely in my scenarios they'll usually come right down on either side, and they'll get knocked instantly before enemy movement can let them attack you.
Yep, true.
I really like that, actually. As long as because you would probably get knocked back a little bit after you collide into them once, you just have to tap forward to make sure you're up against the side of the screen again.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. You get moved back a little bit. So in between enemies, I like to move forward just to reposition myself against that right wall. Okay, so the driving section, not that tough. The most important thing is just don't get stuck at the bottom of the screen where you're going to get knocked out.
It should be also noted that even though the top is safe for you to just even though the top part is safe for you to be at, if the enemy actually does decide to randomly attack you, you can be killed.
Oh, if he's kicking you against the thing at the top.
Part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
it's
though
safe to touch
a couple of hits, but it seems to be random at best.
Yeah. Yeah, it's best really just to stay in the middle and not be at either spot. And, you can either wait for the enemy to run into you or you can run into the enemy, but running into the enemy is the easiest way to get yourself centered right there alongside of them. Because if you're just trying to, fight them the normal way by, kicking a bunch of times and trying to position yourself in the right spot so your kick hits them, you'll discover that the hitboxes on the kicks are not all they're cracked up to be. They're pretty funky. So usually it's best to just let the game line itself up for you. Okay, so let's deal with this boss here. So here we have a boss that we have to actually fight. We can't just knock him into a pit like the level 1 boss. Although I recommend fighting the level 1 boss with running punches and not bothering with the quick kill. Alright, so entering this boss, I usually hold up left because I want to be holding left so I can get maximum distance away from the boss so that I have plenty of room to do my running punch. And I hold up because the boss appears above you and I want to close some of that distance. So I'm holding up left until I get onto the same row as him, and then I just do running punches. And it's exactly the same strategy. Running punch him till he's down to 2 bars of health, and then finish him off with the pin. Another thing you can do is you can walk straight left. That also works, but I like up left because it just makes you get on the same row as him a little bit quicker. So let me see if I can illustrate what we were talking about earlier with the enemy getting up even though he's pinned. So sometimes it'll appear that you pin the enemy and you're punching him, and then suddenly the enemy will just get up and you'll be sitting there still on the ground pinning nothing. Like you're there in the pinning animation, but there's but no one's there. So what'll happen? I'm gonna knock this guy down, and I'm gonna try to pin the guy too soon. So the moment he hits the ground, or even just slightly before the enemy hits the ground, I'm going to try to sit on him and just show you what it looks like when that happens. Hopefully I can reproduce it, because this probably will happen to you guys in practice at some point. See, right there, I was punching the ground and nothing was happening, and the guy just got right up. And that's because you can actually start to pin the enemy before he's finished his falling onto the ground animation. So after you hit the enemy, as he's falling down, the game already lets you start doing the sit on him and doing the pin attack, even though he hasn't fully hit the ground yet. And if that happens, you'll just start attacking nothing, and the enemy will get right back up again and fight you. So that's why after you knock the enemy down, you just got to get used to waiting a tiny fraction of a second. Wait like a third of a second, just a small amount, to be sure that you're not going to be pinning the enemy too soon. Come on. I just want to see if I can reproduce this one more time. Because it is something that you have to worry about. Because obviously you're going to be getting used to going fast and wanting to start with your pin attacks as soon as possible, and you just got to know to hold back a little bit. See right there, it happened again. That's because I pinned that guy way too soon, so I needed to just wait a tiny fraction of a second before doing it. Once you actually see the enemy laying on the ground, then you know it's safe to do it. Just don't do it any sooner than that while he's still falling onto the ground. So there, that's level 2. Now we'll move on to level 3. Level 3 is where it starts to get a little harder. The enemies have more health, sort of. So you'll see these guys in level 3 and level 4. These first 3 guys that appear here, let me see. It's instead of just a jump kick and then a knee and then a throw, you actually have to do a jump kick and then 3 knees and then a throw. 1, 2, 3, and then throw. And that's enough to kill that enemy. Whereas the ones in level 1 and 2, a jump kick, 1 knee, and then a throw is all it takes. But the weird thing is that the enemies don't all have the same amount of health. The first 3 enemies that appear on level 3 and on level 4 will require 3 knees in order to kill. You'll have to jump kick, knee 3 times, and then throw. But all the subsequent enemies that spawn will be more like the enemies in level 1. It'll just be 1 knee kick and then a throw to kill them. So make sure you keep track of which enemy you're fighting, if it was one of the initial 3 or if it was one of the reinforcement enemies that spawns after you've killed one of the initial 3. Alright, so the first thing to do in this level is get on the right side of these enemies. There's 1 enemy to your right and 2 enemies to your left when you start out. So the best thing to do is go to your right so that you can get all 3 of them on the same side of you. 1, 2, 3, and then throw. 1, 2, 3, and then throw. 1, 2, 3, and then throw. Okay, so those were the initial 3 enemies, and they had the extra health. Now the rest of these enemies, these 2 that are on the screen now and the one that's about to spawn, and all the rest of them from now on are going to have less health. So for these, 1 jump kick, 1 knee, and then a throw is all it takes to kill them. And it's going to be the same thing in level 4. So you just got to get used to remembering which of the enemies you're fighting were the initial 3 and which are the weaker ones that spawn later. And then, of course, try to keep the enemies all on the same side of you. I keep saying that, but it's really important. It's less important when you get to get down to these enemies, which only take 1 knee to kill. Oh, I didn't knee that one. Because, you dispatch each one of them so fast that you don't have to worry about the other ones flanking you. But the ones at the beginning, you definitely want to not be caught in the center. Let's see, a couple other things just about fighting in general. Sometimes you'll see, let me see if I can get it to appear. Sometimes you'll see a heart. That heart is actually an extra life. You might want that for this race, for purposes of this race, but it's the problem with it is the heart spawns. When the heart spawns, it creates a lot of lag. See right there. And the heart will spawn if sometimes if you've knocked it. I don't even know what causes it, but certain enemies that you've knocked down, every time you pin the enemy and then walk off them, if your timer is at a certain number, it'll spawn one of these hearts here. I think those are extra lives. I'm pretty sure that's what they are. But if you let it float off like this, look how laggy the game got all of a sudden. That heart causes a massive amount of lag. If you ever see one of those hearts spawn, whether or not you need it, you should collect it. Because even if you have to go out of your way to collect it, it's going to be much less time that you're spending collecting it than you'd be wasting due to lag. So hearts, are kind of a bad thing just because it slows you down. Okay, so let's get through this and I'll explain the next part of this level because it's actually a boss fight that I think is one of the harder ones. Alright, so now all the rest of these enemies are going to have the lesser amount of hit points. So it's just going to be a jump kick, then a kick, and then a throw. Or a jump kick, then a knee, and then a throw for all the rest of these. Whether the enemies spawn on the left or the right side of the screen just depends on how far the screen is scrolled over. Okay. So once you've defeated all the enemies here, you have 2 doors that open. You can either go this way or you can go this way. These are your 2 options. If you go left, either way will beat the level. If you go left, you get this room, this bar right here, and you get more enemies to fight. And if you defeat all these enemies in here, you actually do beat the level, but this is not the faster way to go. The faster way is to go right, and then all you have to do is fight this one boss. But if you happen to hate this boss and just want to fight regular run-of-the-mill enemies in order to beat this stage, then you can always go to the other door and beat the stage that way, if you like. But the fastest thing is by far to fight Kim here. So let's talk about your strategy when first entering this room. So again, the boss spawns above you and to the left. So you have to wait until the boss is on the same row as you to do your running punches. If you wanted to be really quick about things, you could hold upright as you come in, and that will give you some distance and bring you onto the same row as the enemy. And then you can start your running punches from there. It's actually kind of risky doing it that way. It's a tighter timing window. I recommend walking straight to the right when you enter the boss's room. Walk to the right and then start your thing. I mean, either way, this boss might hit you the first time, but you have enough health that you can probably handle getting grabbed and smacked by this boss maybe 4 times without dying. Yeah, maybe about 3 or 4 times. Yeah, because she'll do about 3 damage each time. Yeah, walk to the right and then start your running punches. So that's what I recommend everyone. Just hold right as you enter here. So now another thing. If I walk too far to the right and then I run at this boss, oh, see, that time it actually worked. If you walk too far to the right, it triggers her to run, which is a pretty surefire way to start this fight. If I walk all the way over here to the right, starts running. Oops. But I recommend just walking over a little bit and pay attention to where this boss's feet are and where my feet are. You actually want to start your running punch like about right here. The enemy is still moving down and will in just a moment be on the same row as you. But the nice thing is that if you have already started your running punch as the enemy moves down onto the same row as you, that gives you a free hit. You can hit the enemy without any chance that the enemy's going to hit you back. I mean, this is a common beat-em-up strat to approach the enemy from above or below and, you know, get the enemy to come towards you such that they arrive onto the same row as you the moment you're already in the middle of throwing your attack. And that's one way to deal with, you know, enemies that are normally difficult to walk up to, and that's what you do right here. So it's actually, if you want to know how to time, you know, when to start your running punch, I would actually wait until the enemy is maybe about 4 pixels, I'd say, above where you're standing. See, I waited a little too long there, and that I did too soon, and the enemy wasn't even on the same row as me once I got into running punch mode. But if you get the timing just right, you can hit the enemy just as she enters the same row as you, and then you don't have to worry about her hitting you on that first attack. Yeah, and that was too early. See, I missed her. If I wait just a little bit longer, there we go. You're hitting her just the moment that she gets onto the same row. And if I do it too late, then that can happen. She's already on the same row as me, and I was running at her, and her punch has a longer reach than my punch does. So the sweet spot is getting the enemy just as she arrives on the same row, no sooner. Anyway, so beyond that, this boss is really straightforward. It's just, you know, knock her down, 6 times? And then when she's down to 2 bars of health, you do the pin. But anyway, if you have any kind of trouble with that boss and you don't want to fight her, go the way that Infinite Mystery is going here. Go take the other door and just fight some more of these pink dress ladies instead of fighting Kim. Either one works. So let's move on to level 4. Level 4 is basically, this first fight is essentially the same as level 3. Just do what you did in level 3. The only difference, well no, actually there's no difference. It starts out the same way with two guys on the left, one guy on the right. So the first thing you do is move to the right side and start, fighting them from over here. I didn't get the throw in time. But jump kick, 3 knees, and then a throw is what it takes to kill these guys right here. 2, 3, and then a throw. Once you've got the first 3 guys out of the way, this becomes a lot easier. Oops, that was only two knees. Let's see if I can get a nice clean start to this. I only have to knee that guy 2 times because I had that first jump kick, which was unsuccessful. So that did a little bit of damage to him right there. 1, 2, 3, throw. Okay, so once the initial 3 guys are dead, the rest of these enemies that spawn are going to have the lower amount of hit points, and all it takes to kill them is a jump kick and then 1 knee and then a throw, just like in level 3. It's exactly the same.
Health-wise, when you get rid of the first initial 3, is that the reason why these regular enemies have higher health points in the higher difficulty levels?
I'm not sure. I think all they do, I think on the higher difficulty levels.
Would it just be more spawns?
I don't think there's more of them actually on the harder difficulties. I think you actually just get more health. I think on the hardest difficulty level, I think all of them have the amount of health that the first 3 have. But the first 3, I think, are going to be the same regardless of the difficulty level. But fortunately, we only have to do easy mode, difficulty level 1 for this. So once again, once you kill these enemies off, you have 2 choices. You can go left or go right. Definitely go right this time. This is a maze. Level 4 is it's going to be a room maze, and the maze actually changes based on what difficulty you're on. So I'm going to show you guys how to get through it on the difficulty we're using for the race. But if you ever end up playing this game on other difficulty levels, you have to learn a new route for this level, for the other ones. But alright, so you take the right door, which is nice and easy to remember because it's the same door that you took in level 3, the door on the right.
I'll show what happens if you choose the left door.
Yeah, the interesting thing about going the wrong way in this maze is that part of the some of the doors will take you back to the beginning of level 4. Some of them will even warp you back to level 3. So you can actually go in a loop and play this game forever by going up to level 4, going the wrong way, taking you back to level 3, and then you fight your way back to level 4 again. So it is kind of silly, so don't let that happen to you. Alright, but now once we get into this room right here, these first 2 enemies that spawn take a jump kick, 3 knees, and then a throw, just like everyone else. And this next guy that appears, he is the lower level of hit points, so only 1 jump kick, and then a knee, and then a throw for the next guy that spawns. So here's what I like to try to do with these guys. So very quickly attack the guy that's in your lower left. Jump kick him, knee him 3 times, and then throw him. Your throw will hit the other guy and knock him on the ground. And then you, once he's on the ground, finish him off with the ground pound with the pin attack. And you should have just enough time to throw the guy before the other guy gets to you. And then this final guy will appear, this third and final guy appears, and he's pretty easy because he's the low hit point guy. So just, jump kick, 1 knee, and then a throw is all it takes. So you basically walk in here, go down left, 1, 2, 3, throw. That knocks this other guy down on the ground where you can just pin attack him. And then finally the third guy spawns, and he's really easy to dispatch. So that's that room. From here you're going to go left. If you want an easy way to remember it, you can look at this. I don't even know what that is there. It looks like something that you put wine in to chill. Like a wine chilling stand or something like that. I don't know. But go to where this stand is.
Thing?
I think that's a thing. I feel like fancy restaurants have stuff like that, right?
Yeah, this is certainly a fancy restaurant.
Yeah. Well, it was stolen
Picture
from
of
a
a
fancy
car.
restaurant.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, they stole that car from someone's dorm room. That car picture. Okay, so we're going left here. And I'm going to set a save because this is really one of the trickiest parts of the game right here. Is this next room. It's the only really hard fighting section. Is right here. This is the boss from level 1. Jack is back. Except now there's 2 of them. So this is the double Jack room. And it's really the only hard part of this. Because each of these is just as strong as the level 1 boss. Because it is the level 1 boss. Except you don't get to see his health bar. So you can't tell when it's safe to pin him. I could try to pin him now, but he throws me off. I have to know how many times I've hit him to know whether or not it's safe to pin him. So you're really, it's a matter of memorization. Remember how many times you've running punched each of these guys, and hope that they don't do like a, whatever you call it when you're the hide the shell game, the hide the quarter game or something, because they walk up like next to each other, and if you're not careful, because they look exactly identical, you can't tell who's who, and you forget which guy you've damaged and which guy you haven't hurt yet. So really try to keep them separated from each other so that you don't get them confused, and try to just keep track of how many times you've hit each of these guys. So normally what I'd recommend is just do the running punch thing, and when they both start to get in your way and be annoying, then just walk away and try to get them to split apart and then start again. And eventually the other guy is going to come around and ruin it, so try to split them apart and then go back to it. And eventually you'll notice that one of the guys, when he gets knocked on the ground, he'll spend way too long down on the ground, more than the normal amount. I think twice the amount of time that he normally spends on the ground, and that tells you that that's his last hit. That means the very next time you knock that guy on the ground, he's going to be dead. So the normal knockdown period is like that. He gets right back up again. But the final time, you'll see that's the normal knockdown period, normal knockdown period. There, that was the long one. He was down on the ground for longer than he should have been, so that tells you that that's the final hit. Come on now. So the next time he goes down. So that's how you can tell how much health the guy has left, even though you don't see a health bar, assuming you're not just counting. But now let me show you the quick kill for this room. Because I actually think if you can do it, once you learn the setup for it, I actually think it's easier than fighting these guys normally, because it keeps them stacked so you can fight them both at the same time. Anytime in a beat 'em up when you can stack 2 enemies, it's usually worth doing. When you walk into this room, hold up right on the D-pad, and it's gonna, you're gonna walk and bump right up against this wall. I'm holding up right all the way up till I get to this corner here. And then I move down to be onto the same row as these 2 guys, and then I jump kick. It's hard to do it with me, like trying to pause my way through it. But I move upright, I'm holding upright, now I move down, and then jump kick them. And see, I have them both stacked on top of each other now. So this works every time, it's not random. You just move upright until you get to the corner. Let's see, I should have had slow motion or something. Upright till you get to the corner, then move down so that you're on the same row as them, and then jump kick. And if you do it right, they should both run at you, and they should both stack on top of each other. Sometimes one of them will duck. But hopefully, you'll get them both knocked down in tandem. And they'll both get up at the same time. And by that time, if you can get over to the other side of the room, you have enough space to do another running jump. Another running punch, rather. And then you knock them down over here, get to the other side of the room, and then running punch your way back at them. So if you can keep this up, if you can keep these guys stacked, this is easily the fastest way to fight them. It's really tricky. I recommend at least trying it, because if you can get it to work, you can save a lot of time. And even if you can't get it to work, even if you eventually lose them and you can't keep them stun locked, the amount of damage that you can do will make it so that it won't be too hard to finish the fight the normal way. So I'd say at least try for this strat, and if you don't get it, then just fight them, fight them normally. But this takes some getting used to know exactly how to time it and exactly where to position yourself, and it's not always going to work just because it's really finicky. If you're just a little bit off, one of the enemies might hit you and ruin your timing. But once you've done this, once you've gotten them stacked on top of each other, it's going to be 6 running punches. Yeah, let me see if I can demonstrate this. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, I screwed it up. It's going to be 6 running punches, and then I've got a delay before doing the 7th one, because after running punching them 6 times, you're going to get that longer delay. I said when the guy gets knocked down on the ground, he'll get up after about a second, but if it's his last hit, it'll take about 2 seconds for him to get up. So the problem is it's going to mess up your timing. You're going to run punch him 6 times, and after the 6th time, he's going to fall down, and he's going to stay down for twice as long, and then you run and punch him the 7th time, and that kills him. But you just have to make sure that you're expecting that, otherwise you're going to, your timing's going to be off on that last one, and you'll just run right past him while he's still on the ground. So that's why you got to count. Oh man, come on.
So a thing I'm running into is when I go all the way to the corner and then only press down, so I'm right up against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
When I knock them down, I'm having trouble having enough space to do running punches both ways. So really, I think once you see them running, that is your cue to press down and to kind of get as close to them as you can before you jump kick, so that you have more room to the left and right of you to do running punches.
Well, I usually like to get them as far to the right as I can, because then I go, I run to the left, and then I can be on the other side of the room from them. There you go. I would have run further to the left, almost over to where the tree is, after the initial set of jump kicks.
Don't they, they won't necessarily do the same thing when they get up, though, right? Like,
if you're far enough away from them, so that's why you want to immediately run to the left after you jump kick them, because if you're far enough away from them, they will immediately go into running mode. If you're close to them, then they can decide that they're going to duck and dodge and run around and stuff, or, move around and stuff. But if you can get far away from them really quickly...
Oh, they can hit each other.
I don't think they can.
That's what it looked like just then.
Huh. Oh man, this is tricky. This is probably one of the hardest things to get right in the speedrun. The level 1 quick kill, and then the quick kill in this room. But you get the picture. You can get the gist of it. And even if you don't, successfully do it, at least it's a good start. Even if all you can get is the initial jump kicks, that's still, one set of jump kicks that you get for free on both enemies at the same time, so why not? Alright, let me try to get it once and then I'll move on. Once perfectly and then move on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. So I had to delay a little bit before the 7th hit because, like I said, they stay down a little bit longer on the last hit. And then you're going to exit to the left here. See where this tree and the clock is? This tree and the clock are. Take that door. Alright. But if you don't want to mess with that strat, I would recommend just, like what I said earlier, just pick one, just try to keep them separated from each other, and just get running punches whenever it's safe to do it. If one of them is far away, you can do the running punch stun lock thing on the other one until his buddy decides he wants to get involved. And then once
go ahead.
I was going to say, once one of them's dead, it becomes really easy. It's just like any other boss fight. What were you going to say?
If you pick the right door by accident in the jack room, it sends you right back to the beginning of level 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, don't do that.
Yep, don't do that. Make sure you always get the right door. You can be sent back to the beginning of level 4 or even back to level 3.
So far it's been right, left, left?
Yep, it's right, left, left so far. So from this room we go left. Next room is motorcycle room. Pretty easy. There's only 2 motorcycles in here.
I mean, it is indoors after all. How many motorcycles can you fit in there?
Next room's got 3 of them, so at least 3. Okay, I recommend... Alright, here's where you're going to spawn when you enter this room. You'll be up a little bit high, I think. If you can wait around right here, but you won't be able to get them on the first pass if you stay exactly where you spawn initially. So you're going to have to move down a little bit. I like to move down maybe about half a character length. Or half of character height, I guess. And stand right here. Right dead center. Now, if you wanted to, you can move a little bit towards where the enemy's coming from, just in order to shave off a tiny amount of time. But the easiest thing by far is just to stand right there in the middle of the room, stationary, and just learn to jump kick at the right time. Which I did not do there. But yeah, just move down a little bit from where you start, and just wait around right here. There are weird things you can do to sort of trick the enemies, into appearing a certain way. Like if I'm standing, I don't know. There's things you can do where you get kind of down right here and try to get the guy just as he's coming on the screen, but I think that's pretty risky. Anyway, there's only 2 motorcycle guys in this room. Pretty easy. And to exit this room, you take the middle door. This is the only room you're going to see that has 3 exit doors, so take the middle one. That's how I remember it, is this is my only opportunity to take the middle door, so I'm going to take it. All the other rooms only have 2. And you get more motorcycle guys. So again, you spawn up pretty high, so I would say move down a little bit so you're in the dead center of the room. And just wait around right here, and this time there's going to be 3 of them. Let's try it one more time. 1, 2, 3. And the timing for knocking these guys off the motorcycles is kind of tricky. You'll just get used to it over time. That's really the only thing you can do. I mean, it's just muscle memory. Just practice it and you'll get used to the timing. And I find it much easier if you're just standing still and waiting for the enemy to come to you rather than you walking up to the enemy, even though that is a little bit quicker. I mean, what do you think? The motorcycle's not too tough?
No, I'm already getting the hang of it pretty good.
Yeah, probably the tricky part of this level is going to be the double jack fight. I think if I was going to recommend one spot to really grind out practice on, I would say that one.
It's worth noting if you get knocked down by a motorcycle in the middle of the level, he's going to hit you again real quick on his next pass. So you almost want to just be mashing jump kick.
Yep, or you can wait a cycle, like move up or down so that he won't hit you on the way back, and then you get him the next time around. But yeah, the knockdown time is about the amount of time that it takes for him to bounce off the wall and then come back at you. So yeah, unless you want to mash jump kick to try to jump kick immediately, I would recommend just moving up or down and then waiting till the next pass. Alright. Everyone's all caught up here. I'm going to set a save here before entering the final boss. But this is it. You're taking the door on the right. So then overall, the directions you're going to take is right, left, left, center, right. Right, left, left, center, right. And after this is over, I'm going to make up a little cheat sheet for the game. I'm going to put some notes and various things you need to remember. And one of them will be the path that you take through here.
That's a really good idea. I like that.
Yep, little cheat sheet. Something I found it helpful in the last race, in the previous race, to have like a notepad document open, and for each of the games I would write down just some of the basic stuff. Like in Mega Man 2, I wrote down the level order, what order you want to fight them in. And so for this game, I would definitely recommend just writing down that sequence of doors, right, left, left, center, right. Okay. Anyway, the door on the right is the final boss. This is him. He's got a gun. The gun will one-hit kill you. He doesn't ever pull out the gun unless you're on the same row as him, and you have to be on that same row as him for a certain amount of time before he actually pulls the gun out.
Of course, the gun is a one-hit kill.
Yeah, the gun's a one-hit kill. I'm not sure what makes him decide whether he wants to do like a kick or shoot the gun, whether he's going to do a melee attack or the gun. It seems to be kind of random. The best thing to do is just not ever let him attack you. I mean, it's the strat is just to not let him fight you.
Don't get shot.
Don't get shot. Don't get kicked. Don't get nothing. Just get right out of there. Because he can also stun you by kicking you and then shoot you. But basically, when you walk into this room, I recommend holding right. So I walk in, hold right to get a little bit of distance between me and him, and then I start with the running punches. And you'll even see him start to pull out the gun, but fortunately, you run fast enough that regardless of how far away from him you are, you should still be able to get to him and punch him before he shoots you. But yeah, just come into this room holding right, and then go. Get him down to... Yeah, get him down to 2 health, and then pin him.
And then it goes right into the credits.
Right into the credits.
Which I think is the same music as the game over music. I think.
No.
No.
Nope.
It's just really down. It's just very somber.
It's very somber ending music, and the game over music also pretty somber, and it's got the same instrumentation, but it's a different tune.
It's so sad that Mr. K never finds anyone tough enough for him.
Yeah, no one's tough enough for Mr. K. Let's see, what else can I say about this boss? There's really not much to it. Like, honestly, this boss is not one of the harder parts of this game. It's just the fact that he can one-hit kill you that makes it challenging. That's really the only thing about it. He's not particularly aggressive. He's not particularly strong. He's not going to stun lock you.
Yeah, like, you can kind of just, like, dance with him forever.
Yeah, because he doesn't pull out the gun until you stay on the same row as him for a certain amount of time. So as long as you're always moving, he's not going to shoot you.
I can even back him up into the wall if I want. What you do? Oh. Okay, wait, he killed me. If he ducks a jump kick, or wait, what is the?
I'm
the
running
first
punch.
Running punch.
Running punch is for all these.
So can he ever like not get hit by a running punch?
If you're too low, if you're not on the same row as him, then that'll happen.
Okay, but it's an execution thing.
Yeah, he's not gonna randomly duck one of your running punches. Hope that makes sense. He's pretty straightforward boss. Just hold right and then running punch. He's actually even easier than the Kim boss because she, if you wait too long, can actually punch you as you're running punching towards her. But this guy, because he always goes for that gun, and that there's like a delay on him pulling out the gun and then firing it, it doesn't even matter if you're a little bit too late. You'll still get him without him fighting back.
Ooh, Well, I've discovered that if he places a kick just right, he can stop your running punch with it. It seems that way anyway.
If he places the kick just right, he can. I've never had him kick me as I was trying to running punch him.
I mean,
wonder...
I wasn't like getting him right as he came on my row. It was really delayed.
Oh, it was really delayed. Okay, well then maybe that's... Then don't delay too much then, I guess.
Yeah, that's more than enough time for his animation to come out.
Yeah.
Also, if he kicks and you hit each other, so like you get knocked down, when you stand up, he will shoot you right away. He doesn't do the kick shoot.
Yeah. If you're, let's see, holding up and down, up or down, you may be able to avoid that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay, you can stop him from doing that.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think? What needs more explanation? We went through everything, but I feel like some of the stuff is less obvious than others. I mean, this boss fight, you want to practice a little bit just because he's a one-hit kill, but it's not going to lose you too much time getting shot by him because you'll respawn right here in this room, as long as you have another life to spare.
Bad save state.
Oh, you just saved it with you getting killed. Ah, that sucks.
Yeah. Gotta love the accidental saves.
So if I was learning this game for the big race, I would probably... I mean, it's so short. It's so easy to just practice the whole thing. But the motorcycles and the running punch timing on bosses. By motorcycles, I mean the part where you kick them, not where you ride on them.
Right.
And then I guess any of the rooms where you're dealing with 3 guys. Pretty much any of them. Probably the ones where you have to. The couple first guys have extra health. Probably pick one of those, and just kind of spar with them a little bit. Just get used to fighting those groups of 3.
Yep, that's the thing where most of the time savings is going to come from. You'll probably find that you get good at the bosses pretty quickly, and knocking the guys off the motorcycles a little tricky to understand the timing, but with a little bit of practice, I think you'll internalize that pretty soon, and then those parts are going to go by pretty much optimally every time. The spots where you're going to find that you're really losing or saving a lot of time are going to be just the regular fights against normal enemies 3 at a time, because the bosses are all pretty non-random. Once you get the timing of the running punch figured out, you won't ever have any trouble with them. But all the RNG that you have to deal with is going to be in these regular enemy fights. So, yeah, the thing that you just have to get good at is knowing how to position yourself relative to the enemies so that you're not going to be interrupted as you're trying to combo one of them. So you have to do the jump kick and then the grab and then the knee kick and the throw, and it takes a certain amount of time to do that. So really, every time you're doing that to one of the enemies, you really got to be aware of where the other enemies are and how long it's going to take them to get to you. And, based on that, you decide whether you want to, actually try to combo this enemy, or if you want to try to reposition yourself to a better spot and then try it. But being good at the game essentially means getting all the enemies in places where you're not going to get hit by one of the other enemies as you're trying to do your moves.
Yeah, I'd play it just enough until it became natural. Like when I really didn't have to think about it too hard about what I wanted my next move to be. Because you're always kind of like when there's all these people surrounding you, and you'll be like, oh, can I get the 3 knees or what?
Right? Am I gonna have enough time for 3 knees or not? Which is why you definitely want to keep them all on the same side of you. Once you get down to the weaker enemies, though, like after you've killed the initial enemies on the screen in levels 3 or 4, then it becomes a little bit easier because it doesn't take as long to do your combo, and you have some leeway. The other thing that takes some getting used to is when you knock enemies down accidentally, like let's say you throw an enemy and it knocks down another enemy, like using that to your advantage, because normally that would actually slow you down because you're not doing any damage to an enemy if you throw an enemy into them. But you can pin them and punch them, except that the other enemies around you are not going to let you do that. You have to, if you get lucky and the enemy's not near anything else, then you can punch away. But normally you have to deal with there being enemies up in your face trying to stop you. And so this idea of pinning the guy and then maybe doing a few punches and then getting up and kicking another guy, and then some punches and then kicking another guy, you start to sort of integrate that into your fighting, so you can get to the point where you're fighting two guys at once, damaging the one that's on the ground and fighting the guys that are trying to stop you from damaging the one on the ground. So sort of alternating between those things. And then the other skill is just knowing which enemies you've hit so far, keeping track of them, and keeping track of how much damage you've done to them. That's really about it.
And so, you're going to be expecting, somewhere between 5 and 6 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, I think everyone should be able to do this in under 6 minutes.
Yeah, so, getting super good at it just to save, 45 seconds, maybe not the best use of your time.
Yeah, given that you have 20 games to learn, and your run at best is going to be 3.5 to 4 hours, at the very best. Probably the little things you can do to save a few seconds aren't going to be worth it. The quick kill in level 1, knocking that guy off the edge, I would say not worth it, because it's going to save you 6 seconds at the risk of you dying and losing the entire length of that fight, 30 seconds,
Yeah, and a game over is, depending on where it happens, could be 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. No thanks.
Killing the 5th guy over there. Does anybody in the audience, anybody watching, have any questions about this?
Someone wanted to know the airspeed of a unladen swallow.
That's why I said about this. I was going to say I didn't have any questions, because I'm sure there's plenty of questions that people would ask.
Where should I invest my money?
Right. Will I ever find true love?
Oh boy, there's the lag from the heart.
Yep, the heart lag is pretty bad. If you ever see one of those hearts, definitely collect it. It doesn't even matter if it's nowhere near you, because you will regret it if you don't collect the heart.
It seems really spotty, though. Sometimes the heart doesn't do anything, but once the heart does start to lag, it's monstrous.
Yeah, at first it's fine, and then once it gets maybe about a third of the way up, then it becomes laggy.
Which is really weird. I don't know why that would be the case, but...
Nope, no idea.
Maybe a sprite limitation?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's oscillating back and forth. It's got kind of a sinusoid pattern. And maybe somehow calculating that side-to-side oscillation is what's taken so much processing. I'm not even sure why that would be. I'm fighting these guys really badly. Alright, the P power-up is useless in levels like this. See, look what happens. You get one jump kick, and then the enemy runs away, goes flying away from you. Do not get the P power-up on any level that doesn't have a cliff that you can knock enemies off of. In levels 1 and 2, the places where you have those cliffs, definitely it's worth it. If it appears, grab it and, rocket kick the enemies right over it. But in any of the other levels, avoid it, because it's not going to save you any time.
What do you feel about the running jump kick?
I've never used it for anything.
Never, as no use.
Right.
Useless.
Regular jump kick, running
go
punch.
No, I was just gonna say that I decided to just have fun with the running jump kick against the bikers on the warp stage, but other than that, it's useless.
Yeah.
I think
At
that's
least
pretty
it's
much it for
useless in the
Renegade.
sense if you're not doing running punches most of the time anyway.
Yeah, the running punch is obviously the superior option.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that is it for Renegade. That's all there is to it. I mean, this tutorial is already probably a lot longer than it needed to be. I think this game is a fairly obvious game.
Yeah, we'll figure out the best pace for these tutorials as we go.
Yeah, it's just the first one. So yeah, I will make some announcements about when the other tutorials are happening. I'm still trying to get volunteers and experts and whatnot nailed down, but we'll have as many of these for you as I can do. I want to try to get as many as I can within the next 2 weeks, and then if we've got some leftover ones, we'll inevitably have some leftover ones. I'll do those afterwards, but yeah, if anyone's interested in helping with this, or if anyone's interested in coming on like Mythical and Infinite Mystery have, and playing along and just helping me get the perspective of the new player, that would be really useful too.
Beauty.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd also, if possible, I'd like to help with Dracula as well.
With Dracula as well. I'll put you on the list. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
this is our first broadcast on Speed Gaming.
I believe it is. Yeah, we're actually going to be using this channel on Saturday for SGL, but I imagine we're going to be using it a couple times before then as we do some more tutorials. I want to try to do one every night this week if I can find people to do it. I'm not sure which one tomorrow's is going to be yet. We could do Mickey Mousecapade tomorrow, right? Because that was one of the days you said you were going to be free.
Yes.
Infinite? Yeah.
Yes. I can make myself available any day at that particular time if need be.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm just waiting to hear back from those other two guys to see who wants to be involved when they can make it.
All right. Well, ending streams has never been our strength.
Yeah, I never know when to end the stream.
We just kind of peter off, awkward silences.
Right.
I think we should just do it.
Do it. Just cut it.
Are you ready? Do you have it on the finger on the button?
I do.
You ready for this?
I'm ready to cut the tutorial.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna cut it. Thanks so much for watching, I guess.
Okie doke. Bye, everybody.
3, 2, 1. You better have hit that button.
You actually have to wait 20 seconds before doing it, I think, because it'll cut off and not play the remainder of the buffer.
Oh, I'm not sure how that works actually.
I think that's how it works.
They're laughing at us in chat, so I think we did something wrong.